On the surface, Harold Hal Sasko appeared to be a successful businessman. A 52-year-old entrepreneur living in Lawrence, Kansas, he was known for owning several pizza restaurants and for his involvement in local business circles. But behind closed doors, Sasko harbored a dark secret. He had taken advantage of a vulnerable teenager, 19-year-old Sarah Gonzalez McLinn. What began as an offer of shelter and guidance turned into years of psychological control, financial manipulation, and sexual abuse. By January 2014, Sarah had reached her breaking point. Sarah had met Hal Sasko while working at one of his Sissy's pizza restaurants. She was a teenager, living a turbulent life filled with instability and past trauma. Sasko offered her a room in his home and promised to help her find her way. To outsiders, he was simply being generous to a young woman in need. But the arrangement was anything but benevolent. Sarah was quickly isolated from friends and family, her wages were controlled, and she was coerced into cosmetic procedures she never asked for. It wasn't long before the relationship took a dark turn. Sasko, much older and in a position of power, began sexually exploiting Sarah. According to Sarah, she was trapped economically, emotionally, and physically. She had no money of her own, few connections outside Sasko's influence, and suffered from severe trauma related to past abuse, including an earlier rape when she was 16. Her mental health was deteriorating. In her journal, she documented disturbing thoughts, feelings of helplessness, and graphic visions that reflected her inner torment. She later told authorities she felt like she had no choice but to kill Sasko to reclaim her life. On the night of January 14, 2014, Sarah put her plan into action. After drugging Sasko by crushing sleeping pills into his drink, she waited for him to fall unconscious. She then bound his hands with zip ties. With a hunting knife, she delivered a fatal wound, slashing his throat so deeply it nearly decapitated him. She used his blood to write the word freedom on the wall near his body. The message, though horrifying, spoke volumes about her state of mind and the years of abuse she had endured. After the killing, Sarah fled the state in Sasko's car. She drove to Florida, where she attempted to start a new life under a false identity. 11 days later, park rangers in the Everglades stopped her for a routine check and discovered she was a fugitive. When questioned, she confessed to the murder and detailed the years of abuse that led her to take Sasko's life. Sarah was returned to Kansas and charged with first-degree premeditated murder. During the trial, her defense attorneys argued that she had acted in delayed self-defense, citing the physical and psychological abuse she endured. However, much of the evidence of her abuse and trauma was excluded during the guilt phase of the trial, a controversial decision that may have swayed the outcome. Prosecutors painted the murder as calculated and cold-blooded, emphasizing the planning involved and her attempt to flee. In February 2015, Sarah Gonzalez McLinn was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 50 years, a hard 50 sentence. Her legal team filed appeals, arguing that the court had wrongly excluded evidence of abuse and mental illness, including PTSD and dissociative identity disorder. In 2021, after lengthy legal proceedings, Sarah agreed to a plea deal that reduced her sentence to 25 years to life. The revised sentence made her eligible for parole in 2039, when she will be in her mid-40s. The case sparked national attention and a wave of public sympathy. Advocacy groups, journalists, and even former prison staff began campaigning for clemency, arguing that Sarah had been a victim first, and that the justice system had failed her. They claimed that Sarah's actions, while extreme, were rooted in years of being manipulated, isolated, and raped by a man who wielded total control over her life. Supporters pointed out that her story highlighted broader issues of domestic abuse, coercive control, and how courts often fail to account for trauma in criminal cases. Still, not everyone was convinced. Critics of clemency argued that Sarah had alternatives, that she could have run away or sought help. They pointed to the graphic and violent nature of the murder, arguing it showed a degree of premeditation that went beyond self-defense.